Well, folks, welcome to Leading Your Best Life. Today's going to be a really interesting podcast because I'm with Pete Carbone from Reclab, and we've been going to ice baths and hot pools and all sorts of things. But Pete, first of all, maybe I'll, in the first instance, show your website just so that people get a bit of an idea of what you're doing at this fantastic place. Perth's Premium Recovery Centre has arrived. We'll go into that very shortly. But Peter Carbone, welcome to Leading Your Best Life.
Thanks, Leigh, mate. Much appreciated. Thanks, Leigh.
Mate, what we're going to do, you and I have similar backgrounds. We're both in the business of trying to help human beings be the best they possibly can be, not only in sport, but life in general. But before we start swimming around, pardon the pun, in what you do to help people lead their best lives, can I hear a bit about the Peter Carbone story? Where have you come from? Where have you grown up? Where were you educated? What's got you to be where you are now?
Yeah, look, I grew up out in the Vines. I went to school out at La Salle. Very, I guess, middle class upbringing. I dropped out of school in year 10. My science teacher actually told my mum at a parent-teacher meeting that I was probably better off dropping out to get a trade because I was not really engaged at school, or at least not in the subjects that I didn't like. And then, went and did a trade. I was very fortunate to have that opportunity. From there, started up my own little roofing business. And that grew into many different things. Ended up going to work for my dad up north for a little while. And then I had probably 4 or 5 entrepreneurial endeavors between then and Reclab, all of which taught me a great deal, all of which came with a lot of heartache, I guess, and hard work, but a lot of learning. And all of those experiences from, I guess, those failures have kind of led to Reclab, and me being able to at least get it to this point. And what I'm hopefully learning now will help me to get it to the next level. Yeah.
Fantastic. So 4 or 5 entrepreneurial ventures. That science teacher in year 10 saying, mate, trades may be better. So if I can ask you, what had motivated you and what's led you to setting up Reclab?
It came from a couple of different spaces. One was my pop always used to make us swim over in Burleigh Heads on the Gold Coast, and whenever we'd go visit him first thing in the morning. Hated the cold, and if he was still around today, he would be rubbing his eyes in disbelief at the fact that I'm even doing an ice bath, let alone running a business with them. So I guess it sort of spawned there. It also came from an ayahuasca retreat in Peru about 8 years ago. That was, I guess, a very pivotal moment. I didn't quite know how to process that or exactly what it would look like from what happened during that experience. And then every Friday morning, me and my dad, through one of my favorite times of the week, we go down to City Beach for a swim, rain, hail or shine, at 7 a.m. And have brekkie together. And I just love the rainy, stormy days at the beach. At 7 o'clock in the morning, there's not too many people there. There's always a bunch of older blokes. We call them the True Believers, which one of our memberships is actually named after the True Believers. And all of those things sort of meshed into one of my mates was having some mental health stuff going on. I had an opportunity to put an ice bath into a storeroom at a friend's gym. I was very fortunate there. So we did that. I was helping my mate, and the thing just evolved over the last 2 years from a storeroom with an ice bath in it to what it is now. Yeah. So I don't know what the listeners can make of all of that. That's I guess it condensed, but it's been a journey.
Well, mate, if I share what you've got now, it's absolutely fantastic. My mate that I swim with, Dr. Fred English, got me to come. And as you know, we've been there many times. Freddie is not only an advocate, but I think he's absolutely addicted to the ice bath. What is it? 10 lots of 3 minutes in, 1 minute out. Then the other day was 4 minutes in the hot bath and then 4 minutes in. Freddie's always measuring it and giving me numbers we've got to perform to. And then I think it was 10 minutes in that in that sauna, and he's always going, let's put more water on that. So, but
He
what we
loves
do
the
know is I
extremes.
feel so much more even invigorated at the end of it. What research, or what do you know of? What do people say about it? Obviously, the Scandinavians have been doing this kind of stuff, or the Russians and the Eastern Europeans have been doing this for a long time. But what have you learnt or heard or read in regard to some of the research that supports the benefits of the hot cold, what you're doing there at Reclab?
Yeah, look, I will never be able to articulate it as well as the likes of Andrew Huberman, um, or any of those sort of people in the space.
Mm.
But the main things for me that I really focused on was the mental health side.
Uh-huh.
What it does with your cortisol levels, the dopamine, like in a healthy way, and helping to reduce stress. There's so much
Mm.
evidence out there now that just by doing this, and look, again, I can't articulate it well enough, but in surviving that 3 to 4 minutes in the ice bath and being able to talk yourself through it, being able to breathe, it, it very quickly translates into your waking life
Mm.
in a way that in situations that possibly would have, triggered you or forced you to have a response that was less than ideal, less controlled. Um, just by being able to do a consistent ice bath for a significant amount of time. And that's only 3 or 4 minutes. You have better control over your emotional state,
Mm.
better able to regulate your emotions, and also find that helps you to think clearer. And there is a whole lot of evidence around that the vagus nerve, what kind of chemical reactions happening in the body. From a contrast perspective, though, and a physical sense, going from the hot to the cold plunge is the optimal or the optimum type of contrast. Reason being is that your skin, being the body's thermometer, picks up the changing temperature a lot better and quicker when it's gone from cold water to hot water versus cold water to hot air, being the
Mm-hmm.
sauna. Saunas are really popular at the moment and they're amazing in their own right. I do love a good sauna. But from a
Yep.
contrast perspective, it's not actually ideal to go from a 4 to 5 minute cold plunge and then sitting in a sauna. And you'll notice that. I don't know if you've noticed that at Reclab, but you'll
Mm.
sit in the sauna for the first 10 minutes just trying to warm up. And
Yes.
you're not really doing yourself any favors there because you're sitting still
Mm-hmm.
and your body's actually working harder to try to get the blood back to the extremities. But what we want is the flush, which you get almost instantly when you jump into the hot water.
Mate, you're absolutely right. I mean, the other day when Freddie, I mean, the previous session where we'd done the 10 by 3 minutes in the cold, 1 minute just out recovering and then going back in. The other day when we'd gone into the hot and then into the cold, man, it felt even colder. So it was an even bigger. And I take your point there around that gap between stimulus and response. Part of you wants to scream, what do you do? Like all sorts of reactions, and you are forced to control your emotional reaction and not be a 2-year-old, but like and then of course, because I've read the book Breath, where he talks about the power of nasal breathing, and as you say, the vagus nerve. I'd go to pranayama yoga with Andrea over in Yokine, and that whole relationship between breathing, slow breathing, particularly breathing in through the nose for 6 seconds, holding, breathing out for six, how you can then control your emotional state with breathing. And funnily enough, 3 minutes starts to go very quickly, and even 4 minutes starts to go quickly.
Yeah.
And of course, Freddie then the other day goes, Leigh, okay, in the last 30 seconds, at the 30-second mark, we're going to go under our head, come out. At the 20-second mark, we're going to go under again, come out. And then at the 10-second mark, so by that third time under, it's like, what the hell? But it just goes to show, which again, I remember seeing a show on the Navy SEALs, and one of the coaches or the people in the Navy SEALs said, the body can do far more, go far more than the mind tells you. The mind, there's all these triggers and comfort zones saying, no, you've done enough. And they say, no, you can go way beyond. And so then it becomes, as you say, that challenge of managing response, mind control. What are your thoughts and comments in regard to that?
Yeah, look, two I guess interesting points on that is that, and this is a unmeasured scientific study, science of Pete. The new people that come to Reclab, that I don't give them any run through specifically about the ice bath, tend to get in and get out.
Mm-hmm.
And when I take the time with someone to say, hey, look, this is what you're going to feel. At 30 seconds, you're going to feel like jumping out.
Mm-hmm.
At a minute 15, you're going to feel like this. And then by 2 minutes, you're going to be okay. And obviously, I broaden that out and give them a lot more detail. So just sort of saving a bit of time there. But when I give them that and that these checkpoints, you're going to feel this, when they get there, it's already, I guess, implanted in their mind that that moment is hard. And 95% of people get through their next dip once they understand that, oh, that feeling's normal. This is expected. I have to take 5 conscious breaths at this point with my eyes closed, and it will pass. And that goes to the point of the Navy SEAL. The body can take a lot more than the mind. And as soon as the mind has been given a bar or a temporal marker in the future of this is what we expect, the body then does it. And then people are walking out doing 3, 4, 5-minute dips, and it's great. And they love the experience versus people that don't have that point of reference. So I think that on the first point is really important. Secondly, and look, it's just drawing it back to Reclab a little bit, but when ice baths are done in a group setting, particularly like at Reclab, the shared resilience that you get by suffering side by side, by knowing that the other person across from you or next to you is feeling the exact same thing. That in itself is such a powerful tool, that sense of community, that shared sufferance, the shared resilience building, and then the shared almost euphoria when you get out together and everyone's like, I did it. And, you know, I've watched so many new people get in, encourage each other through, then jump into the hot bath. I mean, there's not a lot of talking that happens in the cold plunges. Yeah. They then go and sit in the hot plunge straight after. And they're talking about the experience, and then they're talking about each other and then their lives. And then they're building a relationship that was spawned from, and it even now it amazes me, but a really difficult situation that they haven't encountered before, right? And all of a sudden those social anxieties and the social norms even that we typically carry around with us, and we act accordingly, kind of disappear. And it is a pun, and I say it knowingly, but it just breaks the ice. Everyone's on the same level. Everyone is suffering. And, you know, it's like the bonds, bring it back to the military, that a lot of military guys find. They see some horrific things. They do some horrific things. But it forms a bond that we will never understand. And that bond is through sufferance. It's through pain. Not that I ever want to or need to experience those things to that extent, but I think this is, I guess, a microdose version of that, and it's a really good way to get a lot out of yourself mentally, emotionally, physically, but also socially as well.
Yeah, I think, look, it's an excellent point that you make. And you're reminding me, because I swim each day, and that's where I met Fred at Pod Squad. We swim every day at North Cottesloe, rain, hail or shine. And we've put ourselves into some pretty crazy swimming situations. But the bottom line is the bonding that occurs when you step out of the comfort zone together. So as you say, whether it's the Navy SEALs, whether it's like this weekend, we're about to swim to Rottnest, the people that do solos, there's a real camaraderie that, mate, we've really put ourselves out there to swim that 19.7K. So as you say, that relationship that occurs, and then again, I can just in the cold bath there, not a lot of talking goes on, but certainly the debriefing with complete strangers. I know we've spoken to kickboxers, boxers, triathletes, all the people we've met. There's one of the girls who we met in the ice bath. As it worked out, she was a swimmer. She'd swum in the same race that I'd swum, the 10K race that I'd swum in up at Sorrento the day before, and now she's a member of Pod Squad. She said, "Oh, I'll come and swim with you guys." And so there's a real connection that occurs there. And I note, by the way, you've got some pretty elite athletes that come along to Reclab. You want to mention some of the names of some of the people that are regulars there?
Yeah, look, we're very fortunate to have some high-profile basketball players, as well as football players, netballers. I don't typically like to throw too many names
No.
out, just because
Yeah.
I have really good friendships with these guys, and
Yeah.
part of what I promise them is they can come and use the space
Yeah.
unencumbered, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just for that reason, but
Yeah.
you know, we've signed deals, to give you a reference point, with the Waffle. We're the official recovery partner of the Waffle, official recovery partner of the West Coast Fever. We've got another couple of announcements coming out. Western Force, and we get athletes from all of those codes, including the Eagles and the Dockers, coming through to use the space.
Yeah.
So, but that is at one end of what we offer, and most of our clientele, honestly, Leigh, it's everyday people like you and me that are literally just wanting to get either a little bit sharper of the mind, wanting to become more disciplined, having some health concerns that they're trying to use the therapies for to sort of get on top of. And that honestly makes up 95, probably even 98% of our clientele. It's just everyday people, and the space is built for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I note, by the way, Pete, that you're in pretty good nick yourself, mate. So give me your background in regard to sport and what you do and what you've done over the years to get in shape and stay in shape in terms of you leading your own best life. Tell me a bit of the story there.
Look, mate, a lot of my nuna's pasta has gone a long way. But no, I used to play a lot of soccer and tennis as a kid. Did CrossFit for a little while, footy for a little while. And then I got into calisthenics and gymnastics a little bit, or more calisthenics. I just say gymnastics because people don't quite know calisthenics. And I really enjoyed that. And then I did a bit of weights training, so prior to the calisthenics. And then now I really just, there's that whole buzz term about the hybrid athlete that's thrown around. Not quite sure what mode or training style I fit into, but I try to do sort of three now. I've been very busy trying to build this place. I didn't really have the time while I was building it, but I try to get about 3 to 4 HIIT sessions in per week, and about a 5K run once a week. And that kind of just, I'm not there to break any records. Right now, it's just about building routine back in my life. Like, I haven't had a lot of that, and I've always been very physical, always trained a lot, whatever the sport was, but I lost that during the construction of this place. And so now it's just, I just want to build routine and draw out the discipline that this journey has required of me, and kind of bring a bit more of that back into my personal life. I definitely lost a lot of that along the way. So leading my best life is getting back on track now.
Yeah. Let's talk about the journey you went on to build that place, because I've seen bits and pieces in other places and other podcasts and so on where you live there or something. So give me a bit of the journey. How long did it take? What was the kind of commitment that it took? Paint the picture for me what the journey was like.
Yeah, so I once, how far to go back? I flew over to the East Coast and looked at a whole bunch of facilities that they had over there. Sydney, Gold Coast, Brisbane. I actually went with my dad on one of the trips. Came back and went looking for the right building. Once we found that and I was able to sign that lease, I literally sold everything that I owned. So cars, investments, the whole lot got sold. And oddly, I don't know whether you're a believer in universe, God, whatever that thing is.
Energy, yeah.
Energy. I had to borrow a little bit of money, but I had almost exactly what I needed to make this place happen. So it was sort of funny how a life's worth of work ends up, and you can take that whole sum and just make one bet with it. So once I did that, I got this warehouse, and it was not in the best shape. This big ceiling all the way through, all sorts of stuff. So I made the decision then that the thing that was driving me the most in this was the story that I wanted to tell my kids one day. And
Nice.
so whenever it got tough, that was the thing, what is the story you want to tell your kids? And so
Mm-hmm.
the story that I want to tell my kids is the reality, which is I slept here. So as soon as I got the keys, almost, I set up my swag. I would shower down at the local surf club in City Beach, and I would eat $9.99 meals from the local IGA. They discount them for anybody listening. They discount them after I think 7:30 at night from like $15 to $9.99.
Wow.
And I have a trade background, so I did all of the demo myself. I did so much, everything except for the plumbing, electrical, and tiling. I did myself. And yeah, I spent about 3.5 months. I was sort of doing around about that 18 hours a day mark
Wow.
on the tools, as well as trying to manage the project. Once we got to that point, probably one of the more prouder moments was we got signed off by the health department with no defects. And
Fantastic.
anybody in the construction industry would know dealing with the health department is to not get a defect, you've paid someone, which I didn't, because I didn't have the money to pay anybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so I was really proud of that. So it took me 3.5 months to build, working a lot of hours. And then once it was built, I actually put a fold-out couch here, and I slept in the storeroom, the room I'm actually in now, for about 6 weeks while we were trying to get it off the ground. And then after 6 weeks, I moved into a share house in Scarborough. But it almost needed to be that way for me. And it's not that I don't have any family or friends or anybody that would take me in. I had plenty of offers. But at the time, I was living at my mum's after a relationship breakdown. So she lives up in the Vines, and it was just a bit too far to be driving after working those 17, 18-hour days. So I wanted that story to be fully all in, like there was nothing left on the table. And in my mind, how I did it is what was required for me to be able to, I guess, sit here authentically and tell you the story that I legitimately went all in.
Yeah, beautiful, mate. Beautiful. Because one of my questions is always, what is it that motivates Pete? And you've obviously said one of the key motivators is an authentic story to tell your kids. But if I was to ask you what motivates you at a deeper level? And obviously, you've done the ayahuasca retreat, so something happened there as well. If you reflect and ask, what really drives you on a daily basis to do what you've done, 17, 18-hour days, particularly with this project, and I suppose the positive reinforcement, the benefits you see each day. What turns Pete on? What motivates Pete?
There's a saying by Muhammad Ali, which is service to others is the rent you pay for your time here on earth.
Oh, wow.
And my parents, not that they raised me with that quote, but they are very good people. And mum was selfless in her service to us kids. And so was dad, both in different ways. But I always watched my dad quite a lot. He would always try to do right by people and make things as good as he could. And I think the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And what really motivates me is that I genuinely believe that this thing helps to change people's lives. And,
Yeah.
that is such a buzzword, and it can kind of get lost in it's just sort of been bastardized, I guess, a little bit lately. But what drives me is the fact that I get to make a difference. And
Yeah.
I came from a corporate world prior in the last few years at my old role, where you're not really making a difference. You're just trying to make a dollar, and how you make that dollar doesn't really matter as long as you get the dollar. And that's not really in alignment with me. So rounding that out, what drives me is just the fact that every day now I get to impact people's lives. And sometimes it's just as simple as when I'm on the front desk, how you interact with someone when they walk in. And I always don't have the best days all the time. So it might not be that occasion, but it might be when I'm out there squeegeeing water and I get to have a chat with them, or it helps someone do the ice bath in their first time. And it's in this space that I've made. And so that's, it's almost a selfish pursuit, to be completely honest with you, because my cup gets filled up by others, and I therefore want to continue that. So I don't actually know whether it's selfless or selfish, because the end result is me feeling a lot better about myself. But the intent is to help others and to be of service.
Mate, that's beautiful. I mean, my cup gets filled up by others. That's beautiful. You're reminding me of another good mate of mine, Shane Stedman, who's a famous surfboard maker in Sydney. And I said, mate, something along the lines. I said once. He said, the reason I'm so. I said, what? You're always so nice and positive to other people. He goes, Leigh, the reason I'm nice and positive to other people is because I'm selfish. I said, what are you talking about? He said, because when I'm nice to other people, they're nice back to me. So it's a win-win. So there you are. In your case, it's a real win-win situation. And we talk about one of the areas of study that we use in coaching is an area called NLP, neuro linguistic programming, NLP. So when you were talking a second ago about framing, and we call it framing and pre-framing the experience in the cold bath, when you're actually we call that future pacing, which is what you're going to feel in the first 30 seconds is this, what's going to happen in the first minute is this. And so you're actually creating a movie in the person's head, and we call it future pacing, and framing their experience before they even go in. So it's just as easy to say to someone, what's going to happen is you're going to hate it because it's going to be so cold and you're going to want to get out after 30 seconds. And, a lot of people versus, what's going to happen in the first 30 seconds, it will feel tough, but then what's going to happen now? And the same experience is when you say to someone before they go to a movie, you can pre-frame their experience. You say, the lighting's bad, or the production's bad, or you say it's one of the best movies I've ever seen. However, what you say to that person sets up their experience before they actually have the experience, and you can shape it one way or the other. What are your thoughts?
Oh, 100%. And that just made me think then about the story. When I say the thing that got me through a lot of times is, what is the story I want to tell my kids one day? I'm pre-framing just in that, because the story that I want to tell my kids is that I am a man that has the conviction to do what I say I'm going to do, even if that means I'm left with nothing. But I did the thing, and I can sit here and tell you that I did the thing, and the thing is successful. And that is why we have what we have. That is why I'm able to impart whatever wisdom I get to impart. But I'm pre-framing those conversations with like my 5, 10, 15-year-old kids now. Like this thing had to get built for that story. We have to be growing for that story. I have to be turning a profit for that story. I have to have Google reviews that like almost bring me to tears for that story. I have to have people go, oh yeah, Pete helped me through my first ice bath for that moment in time. And I think that I didn't even know that I was doing it, but I was pre-framing this whole thing by the conversations I want to have in 10 years with kids.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're setting up your own life. Talk about manifesting and creating. If we're talking about universe and energy in your head, that story, as you said, by setting that as a goal, then you reverse engineering. If I'm going to be able to tell that story, here are all the things I'm going to need to do, and this is the type of person I'm going to need to be. Which again, the great James Rowan, one of the great speakers, talks about. Setting a goal is one thing and working towards the goal, but it's who you become in the pursuit of the goal and this evolution that's going on with you. And of course, in doing so, you're helping others to evolve as well. It's like that Marianne Williamson quote, in you giving yourself permission to shine, you help light up others. You help them give themselves permission to shine. And the beautiful thing about, and we talk about ecosystems, we say the forest shapes the tree. It's a famous French proverb. The ecosystem you're in helps shape you. And what you're doing there in that ecosystem, it's an ecosystem of excellence in that people are going there, boxers or kickboxers or footballers or us as swimmers, or as you say, mums and dads say, how can I be better? And the beautiful thing about it is that I'm picking up from you, Pete, is on the one hand, you're talking about the physical manifestation, the tiling and the building and how physically beautiful it is in terms of the outer world. But there's an inner world, evolution going on in that place. As you say, the breathing, getting in touch with your own emotions, managing your own state. It's as much about an inner evolution as it is about, one, I wanted my body to look fantastic. There's a whole other journey going on, both with the people there, but you also. We might want to make a comment to that.
Yeah, look, mate, the amount of people that have cried in the ice bath it's probably filled the ice baths up so they didn't have to top them up that day. Like the emotional release that some people have, particularly if they're just storing stuff, that comes out is, I mean, it's obviously very cathartic and very healing for them. But again, selfish in the pursuit. But that fills my cup because they get out, I get to hold space for them, I get to give them a big hug, what's going on, and having a genuine conversation. They then leave with a sense of accomplishment, but they also kind of got rid of a little bit of baggage, or maybe they just broke a little bit of some subconscious stuff up that they can now deal with some fragments of. And then that leads me into, from an energy perspective, like we sage this space down. We use singing bowls in here to cleanse it. Also, when I first got it, we went through that process, and we have some crystals around the place as well, purely just because energy is so important. And a lot of people will come here after a bad day just to change their state of being, but they bring that energy in. And I mean, you would speak to it better than me because I'm definitely biased, but the space has an energy of healing, of letting go. I think that's probably why it makes it easy for people to be a bit more social in here, a bit more open to having conversations with each other about deeper sort of things.
Wow.
But yeah.
I wasn't aware of that. But so one, you said what you did was you did some kind of energy clearing before you opened it, and you're saying you do that on a regular basis in some way?
Yep. Yeah. Before I opened, I had an energy worker come through. She saged the place down. She went through with singing bowls just to disrupt the frequency that was in here, just to cleanse the space. Then once we got the final sign off, we did another cleanse through, and then about once a month, I sage it down, just as any other cleaning activity. Energy is so important, and this energy needs to be of this space, at least the way that I believe it needs to be, is just as clean as possible, and as conducive for people to feel comfortable on an emotional level as well as a physical level.
Wow.
And
Mate, well, I wasn't aware of that at all, but that's just incredible that you've gone to that level of detail, and of course it makes complete sense. So, where did you first get exposed to this whole world of energy? And I'd never even heard the term "sage it down." So, tell me about that, and where were you introduced to it, and what impacts it had on your life, and how you use that?
Yeah, my mum was always quote unquote spiritual. So there was crystals around and things like that, tarot cards and whatnot. Then, I think the exposure to that through my teenage years, obviously every teenage boy and testosterone and yada, 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 you can conquer the world on your own. But I think I found solace maybe during some difficult times in meditating. And then that then leads you into a little bit of an exploration of energy, and different energies you feel while you're meditating. that then ties in with manifestation. And I think I saw things unravel before my eyes, or I would think of something and then it would happen. Or I guess there was obviously some micro experiences that formed a foundation of a belief system in me of be good to others, good karma. Um, what I can see and hear, I can create. I don't have to know the ins and outs. I just have to trust that things will work out. And then that just leads you into things like crystals, sage, cacao. I actually never did any psychedelics growing up, even as a teenager. Um, I definitely partied in my younger years, but the psychedelic stuff was not something I was interested in. And then I, a very good friend of mine, I guess, opened my awareness up to things like ayahuasca and plant medicine and that whole world. And then when you look back through the history of that, like it, it amazes me how my interest in ayahuasca, for example, the reason that I went to Peru to do it was that this recipe, we have all the science in the world right now and we can't cure cancer. But Incans, the Peru people, discovered that if they cooked a cactus with other ingredients in such a way and then boiled it down and then did this and then did that, and like they from somewhere were given this recipe that enabled them to safely enter a whole different state of consciousness where they were able to not just work on their own inner beings, but also the energetic frequency of the space around them.
Mm.
The intrigue there, I was like, how can, like, we can't figure out how to, do you know what I mean? I was like,
Yeah, we can't cure cancer, but these guys have worked out how some energetics work and
just
interconnecting with the universe and so on.
it just blows my mind when I put it in the perspective of, even for example, building the pyramids and what we build. I have a construction background. There's just no way in hell that we now can build the pyramids, but yet they did things like that. And so it interested me that their whole culture was built around this inner world that in going in, they went broadly out, like in a universal scape. And I didn't want to experience that for the sake of the trip or the experience. I wanted to experience it because I guess there were parts of myself that I didn't know, or I wanted to be more or better, or whatever was happening for me at the age of 25. And so I decided to head over to Peru. We did this 8-day ayahuasca retreat where we took the medicine for 8 days. And now I'm just rambling. I actually forgot the question.
So coming back to that, then we're talking about the world of energetics. Let's talk about that for a second. Now you've mentioned it. So on the other side of the 8 days and the ayahuasca, what went on for you? What was any breakthrough or insight or change that went on or benefit that you got as a result of going to Peru and doing that ayahuasca trip?
Yeah, and full disclosure, I'm a very upfront, genuine person. So some people might not like what I'm about to say, but I recorded a diary every day, a video diary where I spoke to the camera. And I think I subconsciously knew that I wasn't going to be able to process or deal with what was happening in that experience. And so after the 8 days, you go so etheric, like ethereal. And then you kind of come back and you go into this chaotic societal construct of Peru. And you have all of this awareness and understanding of yourself and how we are just the same, Leigh. Like we're both energy, and you to amalgamate back into society. I at 25 I couldn't do, and so I quite literally spent 4 months drinking and partying my way through South America with this heaviness on my back that I didn't want to actually look at what I had learned, what that meant for me, because it completely changes your whole construct of reality. And it was much easier for me directly after the week to just go numb to it.
Yeah, it's what the alcohol can numb and dumb you. Just numb it down and dumb it down. You had it, yeah.
100%. And I genuinely did that. But the best thing I did was I made all of these video recordings on the way. So I often refer back to them every couple of months and I rewatch them, which is amazing for me now, because the relevance then to now, or the relevance then to any period in your life, because you're learning about you and the universe you're in, the universe that you're a part of, but the universe that you also are, right?
Yeah.
Like you're in it, you're a part of it, but it's also you. As weird as that sounds.
Yeah.
So I was actually told on that retreat by the shaman and one of the leaders of it that I would be taking practices back to home that we had done on the retreat to help to heal people. And my role in society was going to be about healing people physically, energetically, and spiritually. And you give that to a 25-year-old roofer and be like, this is what you're meant to do with your life, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know how to do that. But interestingly, the day that, or the night that I was told that, that day we had done a plant medicine called white tumor. And that's more of you have white tumor during the day, you have ayahuasca during the night. And one's feminine, one's masculine. And that day we had done contrast therapy. So they had this waterfall there that was absolutely freezing that ran into a spa sort of thing, a hole, essentially. The water ran, filled up this thing, and then continued to run. And they had built a sauna. It was an underground sauna with a little cove that we had to crawl in. And there were these stations, north, south, east, and west, summer, autumn, winter, spring, different stations inside the sauna, which is something I'll eventually bring in here to Reclab. And we would go from there into the cold plunge and then back into the sauna. And I loved that experience. To this day, it was, and obviously I was under the influence of plant medicine, but it was just the memory and the feeling of the memory are so vivid in me now. That night, they told me that was what I was going to be bringing back. And 8 years later, and 2 failed businesses in that time, COVID, and then all of a sudden I find myself literally doing what I was shown in one of the journeys, as well as what the shaman told me of that. It's mind blowing, and that is all energy. It is all frequency.
And as you say, we're all interconnected. And look, a mate of mine, Greg Campbell, who I've done a podcast with, spent 20 years with the Aborigines up around Broome and written a book called Total Reset. And he said, those traditional societies, we just underestimated and we're educated to underestimate them. Oh, they're just primitives. No. These people understand the relationship of energy and nature and the energy of trees and rocks and plants and all of these things. And particularly, as you say, Peru and in that South American area where there's so much still to be learnt around medicines and plants. We think in the West we know it all, but this world of energetics and coming back to meditation. In the last 3 years, I got more involved watching and listening to Sadhguru, and for the last 2 years now, I've been doing Vedic meditation. And again, the Indians have been onto this for somewhere between 10 and 40,000 years, let alone Aboriginal society or any primitive societies. They've been in and around some form of meditation, chant, switching the conscious mind off, the interconnection, the village, the power of interconnection, just incredible. Mate, that sharing has just been fantastic. And the fact that here it is, as you say, 8 years later, and to a certain extent, there you were at 25, given that future, and your 25-year-old brother, this is just all too much. I'm just going to go get pissed for three months or whatever. But here you are. It's happened. So if I can ask you, sorry.
So just on, it's crazy. I pinch myself every day. But on the civilizations and the societies, and I don't get into the whole racism thing and all that.
Mm,
I completely putting that to the side, just in terms of having just a conversation for broadening perspectives.
mm,
We say that, well, a cohort of people believe that we have advanced civilization, right?
mm,
Because we have built all of these things and
mm,
we have guns back
mm, mm, mm.
2000.
You
We
can
have a
fly to the
gun,
moon.
right?
Exactly.
We can do all these things,
Mm,
which is amazing. And I all Jews, I
mm,
get it, and it's incredible. But that has kind of put a cohort of the population of the world in a position where they feel inferior. Um, not inferior. Um, what's the word I'm looking for? Opposite to inferior.
well, opposite to superior.
Yeah, superior. So where
The
they
more
feel
superior. Yeah.
superior.
Yeah.
And that these other civilizations, your Aboriginals, your Native American Indians, your Peruvians, are all inferior, right? Because
Mm,
we rocked
mm,
up there with guns
mm,
and they just had
mm,
sticks.
mm, mm,
But they didn't need any of the stuff,
mm,
right? And so it's like, if you just really broadly go, the meaning of life is to just be content with life.
mm,
So it is just to go through life in a present state of being.
mm.
They were operating in such a level, at such a level of presence and oneness with each other and with the world itself, being its own organism, right?
Mm,
That
mm,
they could just wear a piece of cloth.
mm,
They didn't need to impose their will in a physical sense with ships and bombs and yada 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 yada.
mm,
That's not to say that we don't need any of that, because we do. I mean, I love the life that I live because of all I have power and everything. It's
mm,
amazing. However, I just think that they had yin and yang.
mm. Yeah.
Both are required,
Yeah. Yeah.
and neither is inferior nor superior.
Yeah.
We have just lost and forgotten, I think, a lot of knowledge about being and being one with each other and with the world.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like literally two few things. One, with our pod squad this morning down at North Cottesloe, one of the fellows, literally one of the, he'd be 75, 80, I don't know what his age was. I'd said g'day to him every morning in the change rooms and every morning at the coffee shop. And his partner said to me Monday morning, Leigh, John's passed away. He died at the weekend. I went, what the hell? How can that be? But today we had probably 60 or 100 people at the coffee shop, music playing. We were saying some speeches. We were all laughing and crying together. We talk about the village, the village. And in many ways, those traditional societies had that strong interconnection as a village, that we're all going through this journey together. There's a sense of love and connection. And here we are in 2025, the village that we've created down there at North Cottesloe. I know this happens all around Australia, but at the same time, another guy, as part of the village, had set up a men's choir group. And he said, I couldn't believe it, but I've got all these people, particularly in the western suburbs, guys in particular who are in their 60s and 70s, so they've retired, they've gone through their career, they've got all this money. He said, they're rich on the outside, but very poor and sad on the inside. And I know some of them myself, and some of them for the first time in their life, because they've been so busy accumulating and being busy with their careers, it's the first time they've actually looked on the inside and said, my God, without work, who am I? And where do I find happiness or joy? Or even, I've never even thought of happiness and joy. Whereas the traditional societies often so much, and again, if I look back into the Bhagavad Gita and some of the Indian texts, so much of it is about the inner world. And as you say, even within the cold bath, that gap between stimulus and response, your ability as Buddhism, managing the mind, managing the inner world, that's where the happiness is. You can live in the biggest gold tower in the world, but that won't necessarily make you happy. I mean, it'd be nice to do, but you still need to do this inner work that you're talking about. And by the way, I see at one stage you were introducing people to some breath work. You got some guy in recent times. Tell me a bit about that, some of the inner world things that you either you've done, which you've done with the ayahuasca thing, and even this breath work thing and some of the meditation things that either you've done or the people you surround yourself with that you are doing some teaching in that area?
Yeah. Firstly, I'm sorry about your friend, mate.
Oh,
It's
thank you,
rough
mate.
thing,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, it
condolences.
was a shock. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I I think that being open to any different experience is a really good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more sort of out there that it is for me, the more interested I am in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't necessarily mean conspiratorial or anything like that, more just from an interpersonal relationship with myself perspective. And so that leads into things like meditation, breath work, plant based medicine, um, and even exercise, to be completely honest with you.
Mm.
Ice baths as well, right? There's a form of meditation that you end up doing in the ice bath.
Yes, you do.
And so I had an experience with Steve from 9D Breathwork, also
Mm-hmm.
from Power of Breath. He does a form of breathwork called 9D Breathwork. And truthfully, it was absolutely transformational for me as a person. And after that experience, I felt an overwhelming urge to want to share it. So we put on a night on Tuesday night where, as Reclab, we paid for 15 people to come and experience the 9D. So absolutely free. And the idea was there would be 5 members, 5 followers, and then 5 people in need. Those people in need had to be nominated by a member. And it was a way to be able to share that experience because of the profound effect that it had on me. And I think those things are really important because when you're taken out of what you consider to be normal, right? Like, I mean, my ex-girlfriend was a clinical psychologist and she's an absolutely beautiful soul.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot speak highly of her enough. You go and see a psychologist, and part of you, at least in the people that I have seen, go, well, I'm seeing a psychologist, so I'm working through it.
Mm.
And it's almost a cop out because it's accepted that you can go and see a psychologist, and if you're doing
Mm.
that, you must be doing something good for yourself.
Mm.
And it just sort of stops, right?
Mm.
And
Mm.
at least what I've seen of them is they just go around and around and around in circles.
Mm.
When someone chooses to do something like a breath work or a plant-based medicine ceremony or any form of deep meditation, because they're so far out of their comfort zone, once it starts to have a little tiny effect during the experience, it builds in them because it's unexpected that they
Mm.
can be feeling something like that.
Mm.
And they don't realize that they're breaking things down subconsciously and energetically. And
Mm.
so we held the night here, and mate, I've got text messages from people saying that um, one guy said it was an experience he won't ever forget. A wife of a very good friend of mine who came um, said that it had one of the most profoundest impacts on her life. People were crying, uh, screaming, but in a good way.
Mm.
Um, and then everybody hugs, like
Mm.
like, and
Connection.
it's just you go on this. It's like a micro lonely road where you put these headphones on, you lay there, you you walk your path in this space,
Mm.
and then once the experience is finished, we then come back together. And I think that that's a really beautiful thing,
Mm.
that that type of healing or modality allows us to experience as people. And mate, there were guys typically in the group that were really skeptical that have
Mm.
messaged me days later, and not that I'm getting into it, but want to go again, want to
Yeah.
do it again, which
Fantastic.
it's huge. It's
Yeah.
huge that it
The
can
inner
have that,
world, the inner journey.
mate. I What else is there? Like if you actually think about our existence, it's essentially nothing because there's 9 billion other existences happening.
Mm.
But we create volcanoes and earthquakes and all of these things in our own worlds, right?
Mm.
But we are creating it, and it's in our own world. And
Yeah.
so it's like, if what we want in our perceived reality that we can see, touch, feel, and smell to be as comfortable as possible, to get that comfort, you kind of have to go through the discomfort. It's no different than an ice bath. And yes, I'm a guy that sells ice baths, or ice bath tickets, so people are probably going to cringe at this, but it's hard. You have to do the hard thing.
Yeah.
In an ice bath, it's choosing to get in the water. It's not actually the first 5 seconds in the water. The hardest part is stepping over, and your foot just touches it, and you're like, oh, right?
That's
That's
right.
the
That's
hard
right.
part.
Yeah.
Then once you're in, you have to, yes, you have to do the work and keep yourself in there. But then when you get out, like, I kid you not, Lee, I've been doing ice baths now for a little while. I get here every morning, I look at the water, and I go, why the F would anybody pay me to do this?
Yes.
Right? It's 6 o'clock. I ask myself that. I
Mm.
get in, I get out, and
Mm.
I'm like, that is why. This feeling is why people pay me.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so then I take that back, to the experiences and all of that sort of thing. The inner world, to have a really comfortable outer world, you kind of have to do the uncomfortable work on the inside. And it's
Yeah.
taken me so long to get there. We think it's having a better car, we think it's having a better house, all of these things. And they're actually just byproducts, because there is no point, like you said, in having the big house in North Cot if you wake up with no purpose.
Yeah.
Like your friends that go and join the choir, it's not about singing.
Mm.
It's about purpose. It's about
Mm.
community. It's about a
Mm.
sense of belonging.
Mm.
It's like,
Mm.
these are intrinsic things that can't be measured by any data set. Like,
Yeah.
we don't go, oh, hey, Leigh, out of 1 to 10, how are you feeling you belong today?
Mm.
Like,
Mm. Mm.
they're immeasurables.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody's graph is very different,
Yeah.
but they're the
Yeah.
things that matter.
Yeah.
And that happens within us. And so, circling back, the breath work, the meditation, the services that we're going to be offering on a more regular basis. So we're going to be doing nights. The 9D breath work is going to become a monthly thing. People to
Fantastic.
come and do it.
Yeah.
And hopefully, we're able to either pay or at least subsidize the price of it, just so you can get an experience.
Yeah.
It may just crack you open subconsciously just enough for you to go, huh, you know what, really, when I'm picking up my phone and scrolling through Instagram, the thing that I'm avoiding is actually this conversation with my wife.
Mm.
Just that.
Yeah.
And then the flow, the ripple effect of that, and then you leading a better life,
Yeah.
just from that one crack in the safe of
Yeah,
our
it's a
ego.
waking up, a light going on. It's an elevation of consciousness. I'm now more aware of, that behavior is really, it's another form of numbing and dumbing. I don't have to actually deal with or connect with. I'm pretending that I'm busy, but in fact, it's a way of not actually connecting with my wife or the people around me. NLP calls it downtime. Instead of being uptime where I'm present with the person, I go into my own inner world into downtime, or the phone becomes a way of disconnecting. Pete, I'm conscious of your time, mate. I don't want to take you forever. I've got so much to ask. Let me just do a couple of questions. One, what does spirituality? I don't often ask this. I've got it written there as a question, but we talked about energetics and obviously, as you say, your mum and service and other things. But if I say to you, what does spirituality mean to you and in your life?
It means to me that being conscious that we are just all connected.
Mm-hmm.
And so that in every interaction, if I aim to hurt you, Leigh, I'm essentially hurting myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Spirituality to me means that every answer I need is within me.
Mm.
Every characteristic that I need to embody is already within me.
Mm.
But within me, I believe is also up here. It's ethereal and it's there for us to draw upon and bring into our present moment. Like all of the tools are there.
Mm.
Yeah, that's not a great answer, but that's what.
No, that's good. No. I mean, when you say I'm connected to something bigger, whether it be people say I'm connected to the energetics of the universe, I'm connected to God, I'm connected to Krishna. I mean, essentially, in the Bhagavad Gita, they still refer to God as in something bigger, that really universal energy. And in the ideal world, we would think it's an energetic of love as the connecting factor. The other question I wanted to ask you was, so if you were going to give 3 tips to the 13-year-old Pete Carbone, what 3 tips would you give him in terms of helping him with life to be the best he could be?
I'd probably go back and tell myself that every decision I make is the right decision.
Mm-hmm.
So stop worrying about whether it's the right decision and
Mm-hmm.
just make the decision. That would be 1.
Mm-hmm.
2 would be that doing something great isn't about conquering the world any more than it's about the impact you have on someone else. And so greatness, we often think, is this Alexander the Great,
Mm.
or it's up here, it's winning an AFL premiership and yada yada, and it is.
Mm.
But I would tell myself that greatness is the lady at the supermarket who is hating her job, has 5 hours left in her shift, looks miserable, and you're like, hey, how are you today? Those things are greatness. And the more of those that you can do, the better your life is going to be. And 3, this one comes from my dad, who I respect and love a lot, is that if you treat everyone like they're an old friend, you'll have plenty of old friends.
Oh, mate, I can see your mum and dad have had a profound impact on you. You've mentioned your dad a number of times now, from the Friday morning going down the beach to a whole range of other things that dad has told you, mate. How fantastic is that, mate? What's the future look like for Reclab and the future look like for Pete Carbone? If we're going to future pace you and Reclab over the next 3, 5, 10 years and beyond, what if I'm going to play that movie? What does that movie look like?
If I was to, as quickly as possible, over the next 2 years, we'll have another 2 locations. So the end of this year, we'll have a second. The end of next year, we'll have a third. What we decide, and I say we because it's a team. It's a community. It's the people that work with us. What we decide to do once we've got 3, whether we decide to franchise the business or what, I'm just going to let that. I want to see how I feel at that point.
Yep.
So the goal is just to get there over the next 3 years. Obviously, I would like to meet a girl, get married, have kids,
Settle down.
Yeah,
If you want, you can marry. Look at me. Yeah. And have these kids that you got the story for, mate. They exist in the universe. They just have to exist at some point in the physical world. That's
come
right.
Here. Yeah. But look, the thing that I'm aiming for overall, and the people that I tell this actually get not shake their heads, but I have an image in my mind, Leigh, of a property that has a hill that slopes down to the ocean. So beach, it rises up, and it's, I don't know, maybe 3, 5 acres. And I have a little cottage, a little beach shack sitting there. And I am sitting on the porch of this little shack. It's about 4:30 in the afternoon. I have a cup of tea with a little bit of milk in it. For some reason, I have some rock melon and some peach. on a little plate next to me, and I pick up a piece of rock melon. I've got the cup in my hand, and I'm watching the ocean. And in that moment, I want to um, feel authentically that the people that I met along the way to getting to that point are in their lives, and they go, I wonder what Pete's up to, just in an endearing way.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as much as right now there's a lot of ambition and drive, and there is a commercial reality to the growth of this business, I want to get there. And there means that you've done right by people. You've obviously made the money, but it's simple. And my impact has been good.
Yeah, mate, fantastic. Look, I'm just going to read some of my notes because I've been taking notes as you've been going through here. What a journey you've been on, as you say, 4 or 5 entrepreneurial endeavors. That science teacher has certainly triggered you to go down this path at some point, between the science teacher in year 10 and the shaman in the ayahuasca ceremony. You've had influences along the way. Again, we haven't talked about mentors or a range of things. I think we should do another one of these at some point, Pete, just to continue with the mapping of the journey. But we talked about particularly the ice bath, the mental health, the regulating of the emotional state, and particularly, as you say, that we're going from hot to cold, the hot to cold plunge, and how that really came about out of the Peru trip as well. I love the fact you talk about the true believers down at City Beach. I'm pretty certain some of my mates are those true believers, Greg True and a whole range of others, Dick and the boys that are all part of the City Rocks group that are down there at City Beach every morning.
Speedos, yep.
Yeah, the red Speedos. Yeah, they're all my mates. We talked about framing and pre-framing, and as you say, by setting the expectations, how that really does work. So I'd recommend that as part of the process, because that will help people then evolve and handle the joys of the ice bath. I'm sure we could delve even further into what is going on where people release so much and discover so much about themselves in the ice bath that they actually cry. And as you say, at that point, they're so vulnerable. And the hug factor. I literally come across some data again the other day, the power and the value of a hug. I gave people plenty of hugs this morning. The story that you want to tell your kids being such a driving force, and the role that both mum and dad have played in the evolution of Pete Carbone. Breaking the ice, indeed, mate. Breaking the ice. I love that. I think there's a T-shirt there at minimum. And your point from Muhammad Ali, service to others is the rent we pay. That's just beautiful, mate. Your cup gets filled by others. And the fact that you've gone to that detail of the energetic cleanup and the regular energetic cleanup, which of course you're doing that energetically for the physical environment. What we're talking about is energetic cleanup internally, and the power of that through breathing, meditation, the ice bath, saging it down. I've got to dig up more about, but Pete Carbone, there's no doubt you are a healer, mate. There's no doubt you're a healer and you're doing great work. I know you're doing great work because you're making an impact on me and Fred and all the others. Mate, is there anything we haven't covered you'd like to cover in this podcast before we move into the home straight?
Look, I ramble a lot, guys, so I would leave it at that. I appreciate the opportunity, Leigh. It's nice. I'm just a guy doing a thing, mate. So for me to even be asked to go on a podcast, I've done 2 recently, and it's this is my 3rd. Yeah. I can't say I'm getting any better than it, but I listen to podcasts, so the idea of me even being on one is crazy. So thank you for the opportunity.
Mate, well, we say, first of all, everyone's got a story. Everyone's creating their own story, which clearly you're a great example of that. You're helping people discover that their stories can be even better and more expansive than they believed, starting with, as you say, that first step into the ice water. It goes way beyond that. And as you said, breaking the ice, I mean, the people I've spoken to, they're so inspirational. I remember there was a kickboxer in the sauna one day. There's a triathlete. There was a guy playing AFL football, just complete strangers. But we all know we're all going through this journey together. not only the journey into the hot and cold, but the journey of trying to be as good as we possibly can be, as healthy as we can be. And I think that people in there inspire each other by their very presence and the stories that they tell. But mate, what I wanted to do, what came to mind as you were talking, there's a fantastic quote which you may have seen here, which we've used so many times. It's just such a beauty, but you seem to epitomize it. It says, until one is committed, and this is from W.H. Murray, who was an explorer on Mount Everest, and also Goethe. Until one is, have you seen this quote before?
Never.
Okay, listen to this. Until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there is one, I get emotional about this because it's such a truth. There is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans. And this is you, that the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. A whole stream of events issues from the decision. I'm setting up Reclab. I'm going to follow through with what the shaman told me. A whole stream of events issues from that decision, raising in one's favour all manner of unforeseen incidents, meetings, and material assistance. Things happen. Magic happens. The universe conspires for you to be successful when you make that moment of commitment, which you have done, which no man could have dreamt would have come his way. And then Murray says, I have learnt a deep respect for one of Goethe's couplets. Whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. And Pete Carbone, you have been bold. You've done the 18-hour days. You've slept on that floor. You've held that story in your mind of telling your kids that story. You've got the story in your mind of the beach shack and that moment. That will happen. Providence itself will move too, just as the shaman planted that seed in your head. He could see the universe. That will all unfold because you have that in your head already. Continue to be bold, my friend, and I'll continue to come and experience the power and magic that you're doing at Reclab and beyond. Thank you very much,
Is there
Pete.
a quote that I can leave with you quickly?
Please, mate. Yes.
One that I actually just think, because I love that. And there is one that I had as my screensaver during the whole time that I built this place.
Yep.
And I think this quote makes me just as emotional as I feel that one makes you. Would you be able to, just on your screen there, do the man in the arena for me? And I'll read it.
It's a fantastic one, isn't it? I'll dig that up for you, mate. That's an incredible one.
I just feel that they're talking about the exact same thing as what you described, and it makes me just as emotional, to be honest with you, mate.
Yes.
Sorry to. I know everyone's probably
no, mate. Right, we say words. The man in the arena is the man in the arena is okay. And I'm going to get you to read it out. Okay, the man, Theodore Roosevelt, 1910. Let's see if it comes up. Okay, you can see it. Why don't you read it to me?
This one reminds me. It makes me think of my dad, to be honest with you.
Yes.
He's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat.
Mate, that's you. The power of words to inspire and shape us. And let's hope that some of the words that we've used today will inspire others to live their story and create breakthroughs. And at the same time, come and visit you at Reclab and be part of that
Yeah,
community.
mate. We'll do a discount code. You can chuck up as well. So we'll chat about that next time you're in.
Okay, that'll be brilliant, mate. That'll be
Yeah,
fantastic.
people to use.
Pete, thanks so much for your time today, mate. Namaste, and we can share this far and wide.
I will. I would love to put it up on the page. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Pete. See you soon.
Thanks, Leigh. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao. Thank you, mate.